The patter of heavy rain against the windows of the Lake Oswego Police Department seemed to echo the mood inside. Detective Sarah Martinez stared at the crime scene photos spread across her desk, the images showing a level of violence that made even her seasoned stomach turn. The victim, prominent local attorney Robert Thompson, had been found in his bed, his expensive Egyptian cotton sheets now permanently stained crimson. 4 precise stab wounds marked his torso, one to the neck, one to the heart, another to the liver, and a final blow to the abdomen. The killer knew exactly where to strike, and Robert Thompson never had a chance to fight back. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. "Who would want you dead, Mr. Thompson?" Martinez whispered to herself, studying the face of the deceased. In death, his expression was almost peaceful, contradicting the violent manner in which his life had ended. She took a sip of her now cold coffee and glanced at the clock, 11:43 p.m. Another late night, and this case was just beginning. The morning mist hung heavy over Lake Oswego when Detective Sarah Martinez pulled up to the Thompson residence. It was a striking modern home with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, the kind of place that spoke of success, wealth, and the perfect life. Now, it was a crime scene. Inside, the contrast between the tastefully decorated living room and the bedroom where Robert Thompson had been murdered was jarring. The master bedroom, once an oasis of luxury with its panoramic lake views, now bore the unmistakable metallic scent of blood that no amount of expensive air freshener could mask. "What have we got, Dr. Patel?" Martinez asked, approaching the medical examiner who was crouched beside the body. Dr. Amir Patel glanced up. 4 stab wounds, each one delivered with remarkable precision: carotid, heart, liver, and one penetrating the abdominal cavity. The killer knew human anatomy. Each strike could have been fatal on its own. Death occurred between midnight and 2 a.m. And here's what's interesting: no defensive wounds on his hands or arms. He didn't fight back? Either he was surprised in his sleep or... Dr. Patel gestured toward a glass on the nightstand. Martinez picked it up carefully, sniffing the contents. "Scotch? We'll test it, but I'm betting we'll find some kind of sedative." His body showed signs of someone deeply unconscious before death. Martinez nodded, taking out her notebook. "Time of death puts this between midnight and 2 a.m. Where was the wife during all this?" "Mrs. Thompson is downstairs," replied Detective James Wilson, her partner, stepping into the room. "Says she was at her parents' place in Beaverton last night. Came home this morning and found him like this. Let's see what she has to say." In the living room, Elaine Thompson sat rigidly on the edge of a modern leather sofa. At 39, she was striking, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, her black dress impeccable, as if she had dressed for a funeral before even arriving home. Her face was composed, almost too composed for someone who had just discovered her. "Husband murdered. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Detective Martinez. I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some questions." Elaine Thompson's eyes met Martinez's. They were dry but reddened. "I understand, Detective. Please ask whatever you need to." "Can you tell me what happened this morning?" Elaine's voice was steady. "I arrived home around 8:30 a.m. I had spent the night at my parents' house in Beaverton after having dinner with Robert. We had made plans for me to stay over there since Robert said he needed to work late on a case. When I came home and went upstairs..." Her voice faltered slightly. "I saw Robert. There was blood everywhere. I knew immediately he was dead. I didn't touch anything. I just called 911. What time did you leave for your parents last night?" "Around 7:30 p.m. We had dinner together first. Robert opened a bottle of his favorite scotch. We ate, and then I packed an overnight bag and left. And your parents can confirm you were there all night. If Elaine was bothered by this question, she didn't show it. Yes, my parents, Harold and Marianne Foster. We watched a movie together, then went to bed around 11. I stayed in my old bedroom. You didn't leave at any point during the night? No, Detective. I was there until this morning. My mother and I had breakfast together before I drove back. As Martinez continued taking notes, Wilson entered with another officer. Detective, we've done a preliminary search. No signs of forced entry. All doors and windows were locked from the inside, except the front door, which Mrs. Thompson says she used this morning. Who else had access to the house, Mrs. Thompson? Just Robert and me? We have a cleaning service that comes twice a week, but they were here yesterday morning, not last night. They have their own key. Martinez examined Elaine's face carefully. Something didn't add up. The wife seemed too controlled, too prepared with her answers. I'll need to speak with your parents to confirm your whereabouts. Of course. Elaine pulled out her phone. Would you like me to call them now? Please do. While Elaine made the call, Martinez stepped outside to where Wilson was examining the perimeter of the house. What do you think, James? Wilson shook his head. Too clean, no forced entry, nothing stolen, no signs of struggle. 4 precise wounds that hit major organs. This wasn't random, Sarah. This was personal and planned. And the wife has a convenient alibi. Too convenient. Martinez watched as a forensics technician carefully bagged a half-empty bottle of scotch from the bar cart. Maybe. Let's see what the parents have to say. Harold and Marianne Foster arrived within 30 minutes, both in their late 60s, looking shell-shocked and worried. Martinez interviewed them in one of the patrol cars outside. Elaine came to our house around 8 p.m., Harold confirmed. We had dinner, watched a movie, and then all went to bed. The alarm system was on all night. And you're certain she was there all night? Martinez pressed. Marianne looked confused. Well, our bedroom is downstairs, and Elaine's old room is upstairs, but I saw her at breakfast around 7:30 this morning. She seemed completely normal. Do either of you take any sleep aids, sleeping pills? The couple exchanged glances. I do, admitted Marianne. I've had trouble sleeping for years, and Harold occasionally takes something when his back pain acts up. Martinez nodded, making notes. And your home security system, does it record when doors or windows are opened? It records when the system is armed or disarmed, Harold explained. I armed it at about 11 p.m. last night after we all went to bed, and I disarmed it at 6:30 this morning when I went down for coffee. Are there sensors on all the windows? Harold hesitated. Well, not on Elaine's old bedroom window. That sensor hasn't worked in years. The window faces the backyard where there's an old oak tree, actually. He chuckled nervously. When Elaine was a teenager, she used to sneak out that way sometimes. We pretended not to know. Martinez and Wilson exchanged meaningful glances. Another piece falling into place. Back at the house, Martinez found a new detail in the master bathroom, an empty packet of prescription sleeping pills. She bagged it as evidence and continued her search. Later that afternoon, as Robert Thompson's body was taken to the morgue, Martinez gathered her team at the station to assess what they knew. Toxicology results on the scotch glass are rushed, she told Wilson. My guess is we'll find sleeping, pills dissolved in it. The wife had opportunity. Her parents' home security system has a blind spot at her bedroom window, and both parents took sleeping medication. If she drugged her husband's drink before leaving, she had plenty of time to return, kill him, and get back to her parents' house before dawn. But motive? Wilson asked. Everything we've heard suggests they had a solid marriage. He was successful, they were wealthy, no outward signs of trouble. That's our next step. I want to know everything about Robert Thompson, who his clients were, who his friends were, and what secrets he might have been keeping from his perfect wife. The following morning, Martinez headed to Thompson & Associates, the law firm where Robert had been a senior partner. The receptionist directed her to Robert's assistant, Daniel Cooper, a serious man in his 30s who had worked closely with the victim for 5 years. "Mr. Cooper, I understand you worked closely with Robert Thompson. I need to know about his habits, his schedule, anything unusual you might have noticed recently." Cooper seemed uncomfortable. Mr. Thompson was very private. He kept his professional and personal lives separate. "This is a murder investigation, Mr. Cooper. Privacy concerns no longer apply. I need to know who might have wanted him dead." Cooper hesitated. "Look, Mr. Thompson was well respected. His clients loved him, but he had certain appointments that weren't on his official calendar. I was instructed to block off time without specifying why." "How often?" "Every Thursday afternoon for about the past year. He would leave the office around 1 p.m. and wouldn't return until after 5. "Did you ever ask where he went?" "Once. He said it was a personal matter and not to put it in the system. He seemed anxious about it. I assumed it was something like therapy or maybe an affair." Martinez leaned forward. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Did Mrs. Thompson ever ask about these appointments?" "She called once or twice when she couldn't reach him during those hours. I was told to say he was in meetings that couldn't be interrupted." Martinez thanked Cooper and left with a new thread to pull. She contacted the cell phone company and requested Robert Thompson's location data for the past 6 months. She particularly wanted to know where he was spending those Thursday afternoons. The results came back by evening, and Martinez stared at the map with growing interest. Every Thursday afternoon, like clockwork, Robert Thompson's phone placed him at the Cascadia Correctional Facility, about 40 minutes outside Portland. He was visiting someone in prison, Martinez told Wilson. "Every week, same day, same time." "A client? Let's find out." The next morning, Martinez drove to Cascadia Correctional Facility. After presenting her badge and explaining the situation, she was directed to Officer Kevin Reynolds, who had overseen visitor processing on Thursdays for the past 2 years. "Officer Reynolds, I need information about a regular visitor. Robert Thompson came every Thursday afternoon for the past year." Reynolds nodded in recognition. "The lawyer, yeah. I remember him. Always well-dressed, polite. He came to see Michael Dawson." "What can you tell me about Dawson?" Reynolds pulled up the file on his computer. "Michael Dawson, 36, serving 710 for armed robbery. No violence in his record. Model prisoner, actually, works in the library. Thompson was listed as his attorney, but what?" Reynolds looked uncomfortable. Their interactions didn't always seem professional. They were too familiar. "I've processed thousands of attorney-client meetings. This felt different." "Different how?" "The way they looked at each other. Thompson would bring these fancy lunches for them to share. Once I walked in on them holding hands across the table. I reported it to my supervisor, but Thompson had connections, and nothing came of it." Martinez felt the case shifting beneath her feet. "I need to talk to Dawson." Michael Dawson was brought to an interview room. He was handsome in a rough way, athletic build, intense eyes, and a guarded expression that disappeared when Martinez mentioned Robert Thompson, replaced by something that looked like genuine grief. "Robert's dead. How?" "He was murdered in his home 2 nights ago." "I understand you two were close." Dawson's expression hardened. "What exactly are you implying, Detective?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm trying to understand the nature of your relationship with a murder victim." Dawson stared at the table for a long moment before speaking. "Robert started as my attorney 2 years ago. Things evolved from there. We fell in love. Does that happen often with your attorneys? It had never happened before. It wasn't planned. We just connected. Robert understood me. He saw past my mistakes. Was his wife aware of this relationship? Dawson's face darkened. No, Robert was complicated about that. He wasn't ready to come out, especially not with someone like me in the picture. His career, his social standing, it all mattered to him. But something changed recently. Dawson nodded slowly. About 3 weeks ago, Robert told me he thought his wife was getting suspicious. She'd found some letters I'd written him. He was panicking, talking about ending things between us. His voice cracked. That was the last time I saw him. He missed our meeting last week, and I figured he'd chosen his marriage. Martinez studied Dawson carefully. When was your last contact with him? We spoke on the phone Monday night. He sounded strange, scared. Said he needed to handle the situation with Elaine. I told him to be honest with her, that most people can deal with the truth better than betrayal. He just said, "You don't know Elaine like I do." Back at the station, Martinez reviewed what they'd learned. Robert Thompson, respected attorney, with a seemingly perfect marriage, had been living a double life for over a year, conducting a passionate relationship with a male prison inmate. His wife may have discovered this relationship shortly before his murder. Martinez turned to Wilson. We need to look deeper into Elaine Thompson. Her medical records, her recent activities, and especially her digital footprint. If she discovered her husband's affair, there might be evidence of her reaction. With a warrant, they gained access to Elaine's email and text messages. What they found painted a picture of a woman whose carefully constructed world was crumbling. 3 weeks earlier, she had sent an email to her friend Jennifer Howell. I found something in Robert's desk, letters from someone named Michael. They're not intimate. I can't even process this. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage is a lie. A week later, another message. Followed him today. He went to Cascadia Correctional. My husband is having an affair with a prison inmate, a man. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And most damning, a text message to Jennifer just 2 days before. The murder. He's going to leave me. I can see it in his eyes. After everything I've sacrificed, everything I've built. I can't let him destroy our life like this. I won't. Martinez also discovered several alarming internet searches from Elaine's laptop. How to dissolve sleeping pills in alcohol. Can sleeping pills be detected in autopsy? Most vulnerable. Parts of human body knife. We've got motive, opportunity, and now digital evidence of premeditation, Martinez told Wilson. Let's see if we can find the physical evidence to tie it all together. They organized a search of the route between the Foster's home in Beaverton and the Thompson residence in Lake Oswego, focusing on areas where someone might dispose of evidence. The search concentrated on bridges and waterways along the most direct route. By late afternoon, a patrol officer radioed in. Detective Martinez, we've found something on the bank of the Willamette, just off the old river road. It looks like a discarded backpack containing clothing and what appears to be a kitchen knife, all with dark stains that could be blood. Martinez and Wilson rushed to the scene. Inside the waterproof backpack was a black hoodie, a pair of latex gloves, and a long kitchen knife with a narrow blade. All items bore bloodstains. The knife matches the wounds described by Dr. Patel, Wilson noted. And this isn't a designer hoodie, Martinez added. It's generic, the kind you'd buy if you didn't want it traced back to you. They sent the items to the lab for urgent analysis. By evening, preliminary results showed the blood on the knife matched Robert Thompson's DNA. Forensics also found a partial fingerprint on the inside of the backpack that matched Elaine Thompson's right index finger. Additionally, fibers found on the hoodie matched the upholstery in Elaine's car. The final piece came when traffic camera footage from the night of the murder showed a car matching Elaine's Audi traveling from Beaverton toward Lake Oswego at 12:17 a.m. and returning at 1:45 a.m., well within the window of Robert's estimated time of death. "We have enough," Martinez told her captain. "Motive, opportunity, physical evidence, digital footprint showing premeditation. I want to bring her in." The next morning, Martinez and Wilson, along with two uniformed officers, arrived at the Foster's residence where Elaine had been staying since the murder. Harold Foster answered the door, his face showing immediate alarm at the sight of the officers. "Mr. Foster, we need to speak with your daughter," Martinez said firmly. "What's going on?" Elaine appeared behind her father, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back. "Elaine Thompson, you're under arrest for the murder of Robert Thompson," Martinez stated, nodding to an officer to proceed with the arrest. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As Miranda rights were read, Martinez watched Elaine's face carefully. Instead of shock or protest, there was a strange expression of resignation, almost relief. She simply nodded and asked if she could change clothes before going with them. "Mom, Dad, it's okay," she said to her parents, who stood frozen in horror. "I know what I'm doing." At the police station, Elaine declined an attorney despite repeated offers. "I did it," she stated simply when alone with Martinez in the interrogation room. "I killed Robert." "Tell me what happened, Mrs. Thompson," Martinez said, recording device running. Elaine folded her hands on the table. Her voice was steady, mechanical. "3 weeks ago, I found letters in Robert's desk drawer. Love letters from someone named Michael. I couldn't believe it at first. 13 years of marriage, and I never suspected Robert was." She paused. "I followed him to the prison the next Thursday, watched him go in, made some calls, found out about Michael Dawson. How did you confront your husband?" "I didn't, not directly. I wanted to understand first. I went through his phone while he was showering, found their text messages. They were planning a life together after Michael's release next year. Robert was going to leave me, divorce me. After everything I'd done for him, the social connections I'd built that made his career possible, the parties, the networking, the perfect wife persona I maintained for years. He was going to throw it all away for a convicted criminal. So, you decided to kill him." Elaine's expression remained flat. "I needed time to plan. I bought the knife in Salem where nobody would recognize me, got the hoodie and backpack from a discount store. Last week I searched how drugs interact with alcohol, knowing Robert's nightly scotch habit." She described how she'd crushed sleeping pills into Robert's scotch before leaving for her parents' house that night. How she'd waited until she was sure her parents were asleep, then slipped out her old bedroom window and down the oak tree, just like I did as a teenager. She described driving to her house, entering with her key, finding Robert deeply unconscious from the sedatives. "The knife was in my backpack. I knew where to strike. To make it quick, I'd researched it. 4 strikes. He didn't wake up, didn't move. There was so much blood." For the first time, her voice wavered slightly. "I changed back into clean clothes, put everything in the backpack, and left. On the way back to my parents, I stopped at the river and threw the bag as far as I could into the water. Then I went back, climbed back through my window, and went to bed as if nothing had happened. And the next morning, I had breakfast with my parents. Drove home to discover his body. I knew you'd suspect me first, but I thought my alibi would hold." Martinez studied her carefully. "Why confess now?" Elaine shrugged slightly. "What's the point of denying it? You found the bag. You have the traffic footage. The game is over." She looked Martinez straight in the eye. "I don't regret what I did. Robert betrayed everything we built together. He was living a complete lie for years. Our entire marriage was a sham. He used me as a cover while having his real life elsewhere. In my mind, that's its own kind of murder. The murder of who I thought I was, of the life I thought I had. The case against Elaine Thompson was ironclad. Her detailed confession, supported by physical evidence and digital footprint, left no room for legal maneuvering. She was charged with first-degree murder. That evening, Martinez sat in her car outside her apartment building, exhausted but unable to go inside just yet. She thought about the people in the case. Robert Thompson, living a double life, unable to reconcile his public persona with his private desires. Michael Dawson, finding unexpected love in the most restrictive of circumstances. And Elaine Thompson, whose rage at betrayal had transformed her from a pillar of society into a calculating killer. There were no heroes in this story, Martinez reflected, just people trapped by secrets, fear, and society's expectations, making desperate choices when those carefully constructed walls began to crumble. She thought about how quickly a seemingly perfect life could disintegrate, and how even the most ordinary, law-abiding people could cross unimaginable lines when their foundations were shattered. With these heavy thoughts, Martinez finally got out of her car and headed home, carrying the weight of another case solved, but with none of the satisfaction that usually accompanied closure. Some truths, she realized, offered no comfort. Only the cold certainty that human hearts remained the most dangerous and unpredictable elements in any investigation. The confession room felt smaller than usual as Martinez watched Elaine Thompson sign her statement. The document detailed in cold precision how she had planned and executed the murder of her husband after discovering his relationship with Michael Dawson. Each page Elaine signed felt like another nail in her own coffin, yet she maintained that eerie composure, the mask of a woman who had long perfected the art of keeping appearances. "Processing will take about an hour," Martinez informed her. "Then you'll be transferred to county pending arraignment." Elaine nodded, her handcuffs clinking softly against the metal table. "My parents. They're still here. You can see them briefly before transfer." A flicker of emotion finally crossed Elaine's face, the first crack Martinez had seen in her facade. "Tell them I'm sorry, not for what I did to Robert, but for what this will do to them." Martinez left the room, troubled by the complexity of the case. The evidence was overwhelming, the confession detailed and thorough. By all practical measures, the case was solved. Yet something nagged at her, a loose thread she couldn't quite identify. "You look unsettled," Wilson commented as they walked toward their desks. "We got her. Textbook case." "Too textbook," Martinez replied. "Something's off." She spread the case files across her desk. The crime scene photos, the toxicology reports, the evidence from the riverbank, the traffic camera footage, and Robert Thompson's cell phone records. She flipped through Elaine's internet search. History again, sleeping pills, anatomy, knife wounds, all searches that had helped build their case. "You're overthinking," Wilson said, handing her a coffee. "She had motive, opportunity. Physical evidence links her to the crime. Hell, she confessed in detail." "I know, but..." Martinez trailed off, staring at the timeline she'd constructed. "The timing bothers me. Elaine follows her husband to the prison 3 weeks ago. She discovers the affair. Then she carefully plans the murder, researching methods, buying supplies in different locations to avoid detection. It's all very deliberate, very methodical." "Classic premeditation," Wilson agreed. "But then look at these texts to her friend Jennifer. They show raw emotion, shock, anger, not the calculated planning of someone who's already decided to kill." Wilson frowned. People compartmentalize. Maybe part of her was still processing the betrayal, while another part was already plotting revenge. Martinez nodded, unconvinced. She turned to Robert's phone records again, focusing on his calls with Michael Dawson. The prison recorded all inmate calls. She had reviewed the transcripts, but hadn't listened to the actual recordings yet. I want to hear their last conversation, she decided. An hour later, Martinez sat alone in a small conference room, headphones on, listening to Robert Thompson's final call with Michael Dawson from 2 days before the murder. Robert's voice was tense, hushed. I think she knows, Mike. Elaine's been acting strange, looking through my things. Then tell her the truth, Michael's voice replied. You said yourself you can't keep living this double life. It's not that simple. There's so much at stake. My career, our house, everything we've built. What about us? What about what we've built? A long pause. I love you. You know that. But Elaine, she won't just walk away. She's not the type to accept being left, especially not for a man, for a convict, for anyone. You don't understand how she is when she feels threatened or humiliated. She can be. I don't know how to explain it. Sounds like you're afraid of her. Another pause. Sometimes, yes. Martinez sat up straighter, rewinding to listen again. Robert Thompson had been afraid of his wife. I just need more time, Robert continued on the recording. A few more days to figure out how to handle this. I've moved the papers somewhere safe. What papers? Insurance, in case things go badly. I'll explain when I see you Thursday. But Robert never made it to that Thursday meeting. He was murdered the night before. Martinez hurried back to her desk, pulling up the inventory of items collected from the Thompson house. Among Robert's personal effects was his laptop, currently with the digital forensics team. She called them immediately. I need you to look for any documents Robert Thompson might have been hiding, something he considered insurance. 3 hours later, the technician called back. We found a password-protected folder hidden within multiple directories. Took some work to crack it, but inside was a document, a letter actually, and some photos. Send everything to me now. Martinez opened the files as soon as they arrived. The photos showed bruises on Robert Thompson's torso, arms, and one particularly nasty mark on his face. The letter, dated 2 years earlier, began, "If anything happens to me, Elaine is responsible." What followed was a detailed account of emotional and occasional physical abuse spanning their 13-year marriage. Robert described Elaine's controlling behavior, her explosive anger when she felt slighted or undermined, and her careful maintenance of their public image as the perfect couple. He wrote about her threats when he once suggested separation, how she promised to destroy his career and reputation if he ever left her. Martinez leaned back in her chair, the final pieces shifting into place. Robert Thompson had been afraid of his wife long before Michael Dawson entered the picture. The affair wasn't just about love or desire. It represented escape from a controlling, abusive relationship. Robert had documented the abuse as protection, as insurance, in case Elaine ever made good on her threats. Martinez returned to the interrogation room where Elaine was waiting for transfer. We found Robert's letter, Martinez said simply, sliding it across the table. Elaine's composure finally cracked. Her hands trembled as she pushed the paper away without reading it. He had no right to keep that. Those were private matters between a husband and wife. Private matters? He documented years of abuse, Elaine. Abuse? Elaine laughed bitterly. Is that what he called it? I kept that man on track. I built his social connections, hosted the dinner parties that brought in his biggest clients. I molded him into someone successful. Her voice hardened. Yes, sometimes I had to be firm when he lost focus or didn't meet expectations. That's not abuse. That's protecting our investment in each other. He was afraid of you. He was weak. Always had been. That's why he went running to that. That criminal. Someone who couldn't challenge him, couldn't expect anything from him. Elaine's eyes flashed with sudden anger. Robert needed structure, discipline. Without me, he would have been nothing. Martinez studied the woman across from her, not just a betrayed wife, but a controlling abuser who had lost her grip on her victim. You didn't kill him because he was leaving you for another man. You killed him because he was leaving you at all, escaping your control. Elaine's face hardened again into the mask Martinez had come to recognize. Does it matter? He's dead. I've confessed. The story is over. But the story wasn't quite over. The discovery of Robert's documentation transformed the narrative around the case. What had initially appeared to be a crime of passion, a wife's revenge for infidelity, was revealed to be the final act in a long history of domestic abuse. The affair was merely the catalyst that had given Robert the courage to plan his escape from an abusive marriage. When the case went to trial months later, Elaine Thompson was convicted of first-degree murder. Michael Dawson testified, sharing the full story of his relationship with Robert and the fear Robert had expressed about his wife. Jennifer Howell reluctantly took the stand, admitting that she had witnessed concerning behavior from Elaine over the years, but had never felt it was her place to intervene. On the day of sentencing, Martinez sat in the courtroom, watching as Elaine Thompson stood impassively before the judge. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes exchanged for prison garb, her perfectly maintained appearance now stripped down to its essentials. The defendant has been found guilty of murder in the first degree, the judge announced. Before I pronounce sentence, does the defendant wish to make a statement? Elaine stepped forward. I loved Robert in my own way. I gave him everything. My youth, my energy, my devotion to our shared success. When he betrayed that, when he planned to leave me for someone so beneath us both. She paused, collecting herself. I don't expect anyone to understand, but I stand by what I did. The judge sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. As Elaine was led away, her parents wept quietly in the gallery, the final casualties in a tragedy that had begun years before the fatal night. That evening, Martinez visited Michael Dawson at Cascadia Correctional. His parole hearing was scheduled for the following month, with good prospects for early release based on his exemplary behavior. I keep thinking about Robert's letter, Martinez told him. How long he must have lived in fear, documenting everything in secret. Michael nodded sadly. He told me once that he felt like he was drowning slowly. Meeting me gave him courage to finally try swimming toward shore. He looked down at his hands. He almost made it. As Martinez drove home, she reflected on the complex layers of the case that had seemed so straightforward at first glance. A marriage that appeared perfect from the outside had hidden years of control and abuse. A secret affair that seemed scandalous had actually been a lifeline for someone desperate to escape. And a murder that initially read as a betrayed wife's revenge was the final assertion of control by an abuser who couldn't bear to lose possession of what she viewed as hers. The realization haunted Martinez. Sometimes the most dangerous threats aren't the obvious ones, and the most perfect-seeming lives often hide the deepest darkness. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.